there are at least two more messages in this series, maybe others. And our text verses come from Matthew chapter 24, verses 3 through 14, and then we look at Daniel chapter 12 and verse number 10. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. And all these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you. And you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Let me pause here for just a moment and make this comment. We know that Jesus was talking to the disciples, which at this time were all Jews. Now, this has been true. What Jesus has said here has been true of the Jews for centuries. But there's another application that we're finding that is really becoming prevalent in these last days, and that is God's true children, the truly saved, Christian, if you will, to the point that we know that not everyone who is called Christian really is a Christian, but they are lumped into the term Christian anyway, whether they fit the biblical description of a Christian. So it's twofold. And we're seeing the first had already come to pass, and now we're seeing the second application of this beginning to come to pass. And ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. All right? And we're seeing that today. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. Now, I make a spiritual application to this. All right? Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. I believe that Jesus is speaking about his own children. And because that sin has become so rampant and becoming more so as we live and the farther that we go, there are so many that are losing, shall we say, their faith and their love, certainly, especially since the pandemic. Many people got used to not going to church. Or they got used to looking at it online. Sometimes I think we are enabling those who could be here. I don't know, but I do know that when we broadcast this out, it's out for those who need to see it, and God knows who needs to see it. And that's in his hands, not ours. And we're not going to quit just because some may use it as an excuse for not being here. Oh, well, I saw you online today. Well, fine. Could you be here? All right. The love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. This does not have any spiritual application to it. This is physical. And what Jesus is referring to here are the troublesome, the perilous times that are coming and that we are beginning to live in now. If we endure. In other words, if we do what we need to do to the best of our ability, we're going to survive these perilous times. Because we know that many will, but many won't. More about that later on. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. And I made the comment last week that this church alone has fulfilled this particular prophecy. Why? Because the gospel is available all over the world from this church through our ministry, the International Missionary Baptist Ministries. And we're not the only church. There are others. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise will understand. That was from Daniel. By way of introduction, up to this point, we have seen how the United States fulfills every description of Babylon. It is the world's greatest superpower, has the most powerful military, and an enormous bureaucracy, more than it nearly needs, pollutes its land, and has ascended above the heights of the clouds. We saw all this in the last message. Many waters and riches bless it. It's the daughter of the Chaldeans, and the creation of it with people that came from all over the world. Much of this is not known very well among God's people. The prophets talk about at length about Babylon's fate in their writings. Babylon has suddenly fallen and has been destroyed. Jeremiah 51, verse 8, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, take balm for her pain, for so be she may be healed. A sound of battle is in the land and of great destruction. How Babylon has become a desolation among the nations. Jeremiah 50 again, verses 22 and 23. 22 and 23. A sound of battle is in the land and of great destruction. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How has Babylon become a desolation among the nations? As at the noise of the taking of Babylon, the earth trembles, and the cry is heard among the nations. We go again to Jeremiah chapter 50 and verse 46. At the noise of the taking of Babylon, the earth is moved, and the cry is heard among the nations. And Babylon, the glory of the kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldeans' excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. Isaiah chapter 13 and verse 19. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. Now let's look at the fall of ancient Babylon. The destruction of Babylon has never happened in the past. Do you realize that? Babylon has never been destroyed in the past. It was conquered by the Persians in 539 BC. But amazingly, this is one of the few moments in history when a city was taken without combat or widespread massacre and destruction. It's a very interesting account of this ancient series, or ancient city, rather. And we read that from the book of Daniel. How that Belshazzar saw the handwriting on the wall at his drunken party. And Daniel, the elderly prophet, was brought in to interpret what was written on the wall. From the series, The Nations in Prophecy, I want to look, I take this, the rise and fall of Babylon. This article was contributed by www.woolford.com. He was a prophecy preacher. I'm not sure whether he's still alive or not, but very knowledgeable man on the ancient Babylon and the ancient nations. The fall of the Babylonian Empire came suddenly when the Medes and the Persians overran the city of Babylon in a night attack in 539 BC. Prior to this event, the Babylonian Empire had already fallen on evil days. When Nebuchadnezzar died in 562 BC, he was succeeded by his son Amel-Marduk, who was assassinated only 2 years later. You think that being a ruler was a hazardous job? Back then it was. In 560 BC, Neriglissar took the throne. When he died in 556 BC, now let's see, he only survived about, 4 years. After only 4 years of reign, he was succeeded by his son, who was assassinated shortly after he came to the throne. Nabonidus then assumed power, appointing his son Belshazzar as co-ruler. It was this Belshazzar who held the ungodly feast of Daniel chapter 5 and perished at the hands of the Medes and the Persians. At the time of the downfall of the city of Babylon, recorded in Daniel 5, the city was still a monument to the genius of Nebuchadnezzar. According to Herodotus, the city was approximately 14 miles square, with the Euphrates River bisecting it from the north to the south. 2 sets of walls, inner and outer, protected the city, and according to standards of the day, rendered it safe from attack from without. If Herodotus, and I still didn't get it right, I don't think, I get tongue-tied sometimes, can be believed, the walls were indeed formidable, being 350 feet high and 87 feet thick. Now that is some awesome walls. Walls also lined the river on either side, and 150 gates of solid brass protected the entrances. Why do you think they were made of brass? Wouldn't rust. That's right. On the wall were some 250 watchtowers, 100 feet higher than the wall itself. So at the peak of those on those watchtowers, on top of the walls, that's 450 feet in the air. You can see for miles. The outside wall had a deep water moat, some 30 feet wide. During the height of its power, provisions were stored in Babylon, supposedly sufficient for 20 years of siege and designed to discourage anyone attacking it. Within the walls, the city was laid out in square blocks with beautiful houses lining the streets, usually 3 and 4 stories in height. The city also included great parks and gardens, some of which, such as the Hanging Gardens, described by Diodorus, were outstanding wonders in the ancient world. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon is one of the ancient wonders of the world. The gardens were built on terraces and supported large trees. A great bridge, some 660 feet long and 30 feet wide, bridged the Euphrates River and connected the eastern and western halves of the city. Notable buildings were also found, such as the Palace of the King, the Temple of Bel, over 8 stories in height, and many other buildings of less importance. It was this city, proud of its supposed invulnerability, which had ignored the rapidly expanding power of the Medes and the Persians. Media, as a separate king, had matched the rise of the Babylonian Empire. And after the Medes had captured Ashur in 614 BC under alliance with the Chaldeans, they had also captured Nineveh. The downfall of the Assyrian Empire, marked by these events, paved the way for the rise and power of Media, which was in alliance with Nebuchadnezzar during most of his reign. Persia was also rising in power, however, and under Cyrus II, Media was conquered by the Persians about 549 BC. Media and Persia were united in a common government which lasted until Alexander the Great in 331 BC. Their armies had proceeded to conquer much of the territory around Babylon before the fateful night in 539 BC. That's in Daniel chapter 5. Setting siege to the large city of Babylon, the Medes had dug a canal, diverting the water that flowed under the city wall. And at the very time of Belshazzar's impious feast, they were entering the city on the dry channel underneath the mighty walls. Now I pause here. In other readings that I have done, there were still the gates to be dealt with. And it was believed that a traitor on the inside opened the gates for the Medes and the Persians to get through into the city. The drinking feast, celebrated by 1,000 lords, apparently was shared by other inhabitants, so that the normal watch kept on the walls was not observed, allowing the invaders valuable time in conquering the city before their presence was fully known. At the very time the Medes were pouring into the city, the handwriting appeared on the wall. Daniel 5:5 and verses 28 or 24 through 28. Daniel correctly interpreted the writing as spelling the doom for the Babylonian Empire and the beginning of the empire of the Medes and the Persians. Again, Daniel chapter 5, verses 28 and 31. So thus ended the fabulous reign of the Babylonian Empire, the symbol of Gentile glory and moral and religious wickedness. Keep those in mind. Let's look at the continued influence of Babylon. Although the fall of Babylon marked the end of the political rule of Babylonian rulers, much of the Babylonian culture, its pagan religions, and its ideology were continued in the kingdoms which followed. This would make a good subject if it was an individual for those that rule the world from hell, wouldn't it? Babylonian influence was perpetuated down through the centuries, especially in ancient pagan religions. Babylon, the symbol of religious confusion, was to appear again in the apostate church of Revelation 17, and its political power was to be revived in the final form of the Roman Empire as depicted in Revelation 18. Even if literal Babylon is not rebuilt as a city in the last days, and subjected to sudden destruction described in Revelation 18. Babylon is an influence for evil politically and religiously, will not be terminated until Jesus Christ comes in power and glory to reign. Now, the ancient city may not be in existence anymore, but the influences that it had in other areas has been carried down through the centuries. And you see my source on that. Isaiah records the fact that Babylon would never be occupied again. Now, Saddam Hussein set out to disprove that. Remember? One of the things he was working on was a revival of Babylon. He didn't get to do that. Many ancient cities will be rebuilt on top of the ruins of the destruction, but not Babylon. In Isaiah chapter 13 and verse 20, and it shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation, neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. You think about a place that's desolate. It really seems to be. And this has been completely fulfilled. It is now, and has been for centuries, a scene of wide desolation, and is a heap of ruins, and there is every indication that it will continue so to be. Saddam failed. He was conquered and hanged. No one else has attempted to try to rebuild Babylon. Just a thought. Just stray thought, okay? Maybe God allowed Iraq to fail and Saddam to be taken and eventually hanged because he tried to defy God's word. Don't know. Good thought anyway. From Rowoff's testimony, it appears that in the 16th century, there was not a house to be seen. And now the eye wanders over a barren desert in which the ruins are nearly the only indication that it had ever been inhabited. It is impossible to behold this scene and not be reminded how exactly the predictions of Isaiah and Jeremiah have been fulfilled. Even in the present appearance, Babylon was doomed to present that she should never be inhabited. That was a quote from Kepler's narrative, which is a history source. Another one, Mignon's Travels, page 108. Babylon is spurned alike by the heel of the Ottoman, the Israelites, and the sons of Ishmael. In other words, you're seeing the Turks, the Ottoman, the Israelites, the sons of Ishmael, the Arabs. None of them would try to occupy the place until Saddam Hussein. It is a tentless and desolate metropolis. And this is another quote from one of those histories. Probably the most convincing proof that the fall of Babylon, America, will happen is humanity enters the end times can be found in the words of Jesus himself. After his resurrection, he told the apostles this in Luke chapter 24 and verse 44. And he said unto them, These are the words which I spake unto you, while I was yet with you, that all things must be fulfilled, which were written in the law of Moses and in the prophets and in the Psalms concerning me. The one sentence from Jesus that shows clearly that the events the prophets talk about will happen in the future. That future is us. That future is our future. Even though the law of Moses never applied to anyone but the Jews, they are principles that God has given for humanity. Today, they are at the core of our modern legal system. The Psalms are songs and poetry praising God. Every day, literally thousands of God's people worship Him by singing them. Have you ever sung the Psalms? Angela and I and April and Jamie, when we were all still singing together, and that's a rarity these days, but, you know, when they were still home, they didn't have a choice. But we had one of the Psalms that we sung. We had learned it from somewhere else. But when we were in Jamaica, one of the churches that I worked with was way out in the mountains. Isolated, I guess you would say, not close to any towns. But this mountain church loved the Psalms. They would sing the Psalms, literally. They would turn to one of the Psalms, and where they got the music, Lord only knows, but they sung the Psalms. And the Psalms were written to either be sung or chanted. Well, in conclusion, for today anyway, there are many Bible scholars and teachers that think when the prophecy about Babylon will be fulfilled, about 290 million Americans will perish. That's scary. We will see why in the next part. It's left a cliffhanger. Oh, man, you're going to make us wait? Sister Brenda, you'll have to view it afterwards. Tristan, I said you'll have to view it afterwards. It's scary, but I want you to know that the things that I am presenting to you in this series of messages is being talked about by many. If you know what to look for in the internet, you will find event after event after event after event. Reference after reference after reference after reference. That we truly are living in these last days.